All right, folks. So there you have it. I was talking about with the camera.
Oh,
My God. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to My Golf DNA. This week, this is a big week because we're working on lag. That's right, you hear lag so much, and I know that every single one of you knows you have to have it in your golf swing, and every single one of you tries to get it into the golf swing either by doing way too much too early on in the swing shape, or not enough at all, and you save it for late in the golf swing, and you start trying to create a massive amount of angle at the top, and then from there, you start throwing it out away from you. Today, we're gonna help you find that perfect blend of how to set the golf club, get it into a good spot. And we're also gonna teach you what it's like to be able to start using your weight shift to increase angle from the top of the swing down, so that when you come into the hitting area, you are a force to be reckoned with. And I mean a force, because I know you wanna hit the ball further. So you want lag, you're gonna have it. You want an effortless feeling golf swing, you're gonna have it. You want a golf swing that's gonna produce really high amounts of compression all day, every day, you're gonna have it. Let's go ahead and get started now. So before we embark on this journey though, I want you to understand that this video is going to have, let me just say it in a nice way. This video is gonna have a lot of information, a lot of details. And I know a lot of you at home in the world of the internet have some different levels of patience when it comes to a lot of information like this. So I'm gonna do you a favor, is I'm gonna put some timestamps in the description below so that you can skip to the part of the video that might strike your fancy the most. But I wanna make sure that you understand something that's very important to me in this process, is that in order for you to get better at the game of golf, you need to learn movement and be able to practice properly. So I want you to do me a big favor on your side, is I want you to make sure that when you go through this process, that you use a camera. You have to use a camera to back check this stuff, to know that you're ready to graduate from step 1 into step 2, and then graduate from step 2 into step 3. That's how I want you to approach this. So step number 1, I'm gonna show you exactly what you're gonna be looking for to try to achieve in order to be able to get past step 1 into step 2. Now this is what it's gonna look like in order for you to get past step number 1. When you can do that movement perfectly, and you have the feedback from the camera and the little golf shots that you're gonna be hitting, then you are ready to start taking on the big parts of this drill. Now, in step number 1, there is going to be a lot of information that I'm gonna pass along here. And we're gonna start out the process by actually eliminating the golf club altogether and doing some lead arm only functions at first. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna bring the trail hand back in and the golf club back in, and we're gonna get it to follow along very quickly. I don't like to do reps where we isolate the body too much for too long, because it's not realistic. But what you wanna do is remember, as I start to walk you through these steps, is that your job is to get connected to the movements. Get connected to what you're trying to get done, and stay connected to those movements, and stop worrying about the golf club. The golf club is gonna move consequentially to how your body is performing. A lot of you will stop making progress because you're worried about the club face being shut or open or having too much shaft lean or being too steep. Don't worry about that stuff. Get this stuff buttoned up exactly as I outline it, and allow the increase of the movements to start helping kind of filter things back out for you. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to take your golf club and I want you to set it off to the side, and I want you to have a golf ball down on the ground, and I want you to go ahead and get yourself set up like you're ready to hit this golf ball as far down the fairway as you possibly can. Now, if you don't have a good setup position, then you don't have any business watching this video right now. Stop what you're doing and go watch the setup video that I'm gonna put on the screen here right now. Okay, now what we're gonna be working from here in just a moment is what we call a light impact position. And I use the word light impact position because we wanna do some reps. And putting yourself into a full body impact position and being able to have some side bend here and your hips ripped open is not a position of comfort, and you're not gonna be able to do a lot of reps. So a light impact position is gonna look when you take your setup, where you just shift your hips to where your hip socket, your knee, and your ankle are stacked right on top of one another. Your spine is gonna be fairly upright. Open your hips up about 5 or 10 degrees, and I want your lead arm hanging down freely underneath your lead shoulder. From your light impact position, I want you to go ahead and take your lead thumb and your trail hand, and I want you to grab it like your thumb is the shaft of your golf club. And I want you to go ahead and swing your arms back to where your lead hand is now right in front of your trail thigh, okay? Not outside your trail thigh, right in the middle of it, okay? I want your lead wrist to be anatomically flat. I want your glove logo or your watch pointed directly out in front of you. Now, from this position, what we're gonna do is we're gonna let our arms swing back down to our lead thigh, and we're gonna rotate this wrist and forearm But we're also gonna try to take our lead wrist and we're gonna try to bow it ever so slightly. So what I mean by bowing, or the term flexion, is if I were to hold my wrist out in front of me anatomically flat, and I were to take my knuckles and tuck them down underneath my watch, that's what we call bowing or flexion. Now, as my hands and arms start to swing down to my lead thigh, I'm gonna try to tuck those knuckles down and I'm gonna try to rotate my wrist and forearm to where my glove or my watch is pointed more down the target line. Now, it's very important that you understand that I understand that the position in which your wrist is gonna look like at impact is gonna be very dependent on your grip. If you have a very weak grip like Collin Morikawa, then your watch would be pointed perfectly down the target line. If you have kind of a neutral grip, then your watch is gonna be pointed a little bit out towards the right. If you have a really strong grip like Dustin Johnson, it's gonna be pointed more out in front of you here. So understanding that everybody's gonna be a little bit different. I'm gonna give you baseline movement here that you can have some subtle tweaks to when we start introducing the golf club and the ball back to the mix. You're gonna know if your club face is shut when you hit these little small shots and your ball goes left of the planet. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, good. We're gonna do 25 reps from a light impact position, just going from your trail thigh to your lead thigh. This little small movement may seem like you're a small child and I'm holding your hand crossing the street. There's a reason for that. I don't care if you are a +2 handicap or a 22 handicap. If you want to be good at the game of golf, you've got to be precise. If you watch the best players in the world when they're practicing and learning new movement, they do exactly what I'm teaching you here today. They do it very small and condensed, and then they start adding more and more to it. That's exactly what we're going to do. Now we're going to do 25 reps from a light impact position. So I want you to go ahead and take your setup. Okay, imagine you're going to hit this golf ball down the fairway as far as you possibly can. Grab your lead thumb and your trail hand. Shift your hips to where your hip socket, knee, and ankle are on top of one another. Open your hips up. Take your arms and swing them back right in front of your trail thigh. Make sure your wrist is anatomically flat. Now, as your arm starts to swing down, you're going to try to bow that wrist slightly and turn it down the target line and stop. 25 reps just like that. These little small movements. Now, you've just completed 25 reps. I know it feels like, what did I just do? Remember, get connected to what you just felt there. We're gonna do that exact same thing with the golf club in our hands now, but now we're not gonna stop in front of our lead thigh. We're actually gonna let the hands and arms continue to move through that position, and we're gonna let the club swing through to a toe-up position on the lead side of the body. So the way that I want you to think about this is you're gonna be really, really responsible for being very focused on your wrist position from here to here, okay? Now, as we start to let the wrists and forearms release through the hitting area, you want to be able to stop on the lead side of the body in this position, and you want to be able to back check it. I don't care what the golf club looks like down here right now. I care about where the golf club finishes on this side. I care about you getting connected to the movements, just like I outlined just a moment ago, as you start to go through step number 1. And you're going to be able to dial it in perfectly when we start adding the golf ball to know if your face is open or closed when you start hitting shots. So what we're going to do here, to get this set up for ourselves, light impact position. Okay, get your wrists anatomically flat, pointed out in front of your body. Okay, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let my arms swing down. Okay, now I'm also gonna let my hands and arms let the club release out in front of me. And I wanna make sure that the toe of the club is up to the sky. I wanna get familiar with this position. Okay, so we're gonna be going from right here in front of my trail thigh to the release. Now when we do this, you're gonna feel some activation in your wrist for now. As you start to let the club swing to the other side, I want you to feel like you're keeping your grip pressure light. You can get the wrist to respond and keep the grip pressure really light. If you keep the grip pressure light, then the club is gonna wanna start to swing freely and it's gonna wanna do some work here for you. Golf clubs, the beauty of them is that they're designed to swing on an inclined plane and they're designed to rotate around their axis. You at home get in the way of it way too much. That's why golf is, again, another big struggle bus for you. So now we're gonna do 25 reps the same exact way. We're gonna go ahead and put ourselves into a light impact position. Okay. Hands in front of the trail thigh. Now from here, we're gonna go ahead and make sure our arms feel like they're working down and releasing the club. So I'm focused on my wrist bowing and turning, and then I wanted to get the toe of the club up to the sky on the lead side of my body. So we're gonna do 25 reps. Light impact position, hands in the right spot, Wrist is anatomically flat. Okay. Now, when you see me do this drill, you should notice that my shoulders are steepening a little bit. You definitely see that my hands and arms are extended and straight in front of my body, and you'll see that the toe of the club is perfectly up to the sky. When you land in that position, check the position to make sure that the club is in the right spot, that your hands and your arms are extended. If the club is not in the right spot or you're not extended, fix it. And then on that very next rep, get back to that same spot by focusing on the movement down here. Now let's go ahead and do another rep. Light impact position. Okay, I feel pretty good about that. Just knocked out my 25 reps, wrists only, knocked out my 25 reps with a golf club. Now, let's start putting it to the test. I'm gonna do a 1-to-1 ratio in step number 1, and I'm gonna start hitting some golf balls. My job here is to not worry about the club head or not worry about the ball. My job is to focus on those exact movements. When I do this drill, if I do it properly, the club and the golf ball interaction should be pretty crispy. And I should be able to pick a spot that's directly in front of me and hit the golf ball dead at it. So we're gonna do a 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, contact was really crispy there, right down Broadway. Okay, now listen, step 1, super boring, I get it, but super important. You gotta learn that piece because we're actually gonna start moving to and through that piece from a 9 o'clock position. This is the step 2 in 30-60 that's really important to this drill. Now, a lot of times people struggle with creating lag in the golf swing because they do it way too much, way too early on. You start trying to set the wrists way too much and you start collapsing width and you start that process with the wrists getting in that full max range of motion. That in turn is going to start making it very hard for you to be able to preserve it through the rest of the swing shape. And the other problem that we see is that people will not try to support the club at all through their takeaway and their backswing. They're trying to save it for very late. A lot of times what that does is it saves all of that range of motion and it turns it into an overfolded right arm or an overflexed right arm, which turns into arm overrun and then the wrists get really long at the top of the swing. What you want to know is that how much angle that we set is very little. It's not a whole lot. And that's what this drill is designed to do, is to teach you that these reference points are going to be basically in your takeaway, you're going to have 30% of your range of motion in your wrists, and that at your 9 o'clock position, you're going to have about 60% of your range of motion in your wrists. Now, that's not really what's happening, but again, I'm trying to create a good visual and feel that you can latch into. Now, what we're going to see here when we do this drill is your objective here in step number 2 is you want to be able to get yourself to a 9 o'clock position and start swinging through and tying that back into what you just did in step number 1 with the release. You want to be able to start making downswings from that 9 o'clock position, shifting your weight back onto your lead side, feeling your weight get onto that lead ankle and feeling those wrists do exactly what we just trained for the first half of this video. When you can do that properly, now you're ready to start going into step number 3 when we start having some fun and start hitting some full shots. You can use this entire protocol the next time you go out to the driving range. You can use this protocol every time you pick up a club and start practicing, and you can consolidate down the practice program as you start to get more proficient with it. That's the beauty of this. Let's walk through step number 2 and how I want you to practice this. Now, what we're going to be looking for is in our takeaway. So we're going to start from a static address position, and we're going to go and make a little small shift of our weight onto our trail side, and we're going to start turning our body. Now, when our hands get outside of our trail thigh, we want to start supporting the club with a little bit of wrist set. We want to make sure that the club shaft is parallel to the ground at this point. So I've turned my body about 45 degrees, I've shifted my weight, and my hands and arms are straight, and the club is supported to where it is now parallel to the ground. I don't want to see the club way up here, and I don't want to see the club lagging down underneath your hands. That's the 30 position. Now from 30, what we're going to do is we're going to start turning our body a little bit more to get our lead arm to parallel to the ground, and you're going to increase the set so the club shaft is virtually perpendicular to the ground, but not quite perpendicular. This is perpendicular. This is a little bit short of it. We want to see it right in this neck of the woods. I don't want to see the club way out here. So you're going to go weight shift, body turn to 30, continue to turn, and then support the club so it's almost perpendicular to the ground. We're going to start out by doing 10 reps where it's done in 2 pieces. Then once you get those 10 reps done, you know that they're right, you're pretty connected to it, then we're gonna start doing it in fluidity. So let's go ahead and knock out our reps. So 10 reps, slow and chunky. Good. Good. Now let's try to do it in fluidity for another 10 to 15 reps here. Now, if you get to this position and you know it's off because you're using a mirror or a camera, then fix that position. Once you can do that, you can go from a static address position to your 9 o'clock position, and you have the perfect amount of wrist set. You got 30% and you got 60%. Now we're gonna start turning this into a swing. Now, how I want you to think about this is that you heard me say this probably one too many times at this point, is that really lag is a byproduct of little bits of support and a whole lot of good sequence. What you wanna remember from that 9 o'clock position, how your hands and your arms are gonna get down to delivery is a little bit of gravity, right? So if my shoulders were to relax, my arms are gonna come down, but a whole lot of hip action. So if my legs and my hips were to shift and unwind, well, where are my hands? Well, that looks pretty familiar, right? That looks like the position that you just worked on. So your job now from that 60% position, or 9 o'clock, is to now shift and release over to the other side of the body. You're gonna be thinking about getting your weight to your lead ankle. You're gonna be thinking about rotating your hips open, and you're gonna be thinking about what you just trained your lead wrist to do in step number 1. And we're gonna do this for 10, 15 reps or so. I wouldn't suggest hitting any golf balls at first because we're gonna be going to a static position, and I don't want the distraction of the golf ball to get in the way just yet. So we're gonna do the whole kit and caboodle here. So from here, I'm gonna shift and swing through. Felt very connected to the 30 and 60. Felt very connected to the weight shift and the release that I just worked on. That's all good. I'm gonna keep doing that to make sure that I can do it as accurate and proficiently as possible. Pretty good there, folks. We are ready to graduate on to step number 3. So you just learned the 30 and you just learned the 60 and you already learned the release. Now, here comes the down cock. Down cock is an increase in angle between the club shaft and your forearm. Now, when this happens in the golf swing, it's doing a few different things for us that are gonna be working in our favor. It's actually doing so much good in your golf swing. If you can allow it to happen properly, it would blow your mind. But the way I want you to think about this is that your wrist, when the club starts to down cock, is gonna go from a little bit of extension and it's gonna start moving into what we call flexion, or it's gonna start to bow. That's a good thing for us because it's gonna help you get the club face to start to square up and shallow the swing plane on the way down. And if you remember correctly, what I was having you do down in front of your body in the release, it had that sort of bowed sensation tied back to it. Now, under no circumstance at high rates of speed are you gonna be able to slow down and bow your wrist down there. But this stuff is gonna naturally start to happen when you start to learn that down cock. It's also important that you understand that down cock, or an increase in angle past that 60% position that I just taught you, is not gonna be created by some sort of big, robust folding of the trail arm or some sort of big active movement from your wrist. That's what's gonna get you into trouble in the first place. You don't wanna try to create this angle. You want this angle to increase as a byproduct of you moving in the proper sequence. When you start shifting your weight back to your lead side, when your body turn gets to its fullest point, which is the signal for when the backswing is complete, your hands and your arms should actually still be working into the vertical plane ever so slightly. They should still be working to finish off the top of the swing, right? And because the golf club's momentum and inertia is working this way, and my body's moving this way, that's gonna start to create that increase in angle. And it's gonna be done very, very subtly. You'll see it happen very subtly on camera. You may see me try to exaggerate it a little bit, but the reason or the way that it actually happens is that because we're moving our arms and our body in the proper sequence, and because we're just giving the wrist little bits of support, and not with a whole lot of tension in them, that because we're keeping the arms and the hands pretty tension free at the top of the swing, that's gonna naturally start to happen. It's a natural movement. If you start to try to create it, or you try to float load it, that's what's gonna get you into trouble. Now, a lot of you at home probably just had the tongue start hanging out of your mouth and the smoke coming out of your brain, trying to figure out what the heck float load means. Float loading is just a fancy golf instruction term for people that take the club and don't set the wrists at all, and then as they get to a certain point, they're gonna start pulling the handle back in the other direction. Yes, that looks fancy and can create lots and lots of lag, but is not the best way for you to actually be able to develop a good solid sequence of movements in the golf swing. It's too hand and arm involved, and it's actually a creation of lag through a hand and arm function more than it is through a sequence of movements. So the way that we're gonna work through step number 3 here is we're gonna be basically doing exactly what we just did in step number 2, but we're gonna be finishing off the backswing. Now to finish off the backswing, all I want you to do is just turn your body fully to try to get you out to fully 90 degrees. I don't want you to think about making some sort of big wrist or arm change from your 9 o'clock position up to the top, okay? And we're gonna do 3 reps working to a static position. And you should feel some tension in your hands and your arms. And then after we do those 3 reps, what you're gonna do is on the 4th rep, when you get to the top and you feel your hands start to move to that same spot, is you're gonna keep your tension levels real low and you're gonna start shifting over to your left side and start to swing through. And that's where we're gonna back check on camera from face on and down the line to look to see if we see that little tiny increase in angle. We look to see if we have more angle coming down, and we look to see what we look like with our hands in front of our trail thigh. If everything looks good, then you're gonna get the green light to start hitting some golf balls, and you can understand how you can use this entire protocol now to be able to start your practice sessions. So let me walk through the whole protocol now. Fourth rep, same spot, releasing tension and starting to shift. That felt pretty good. If I'm connected to it, I'm gonna try to hit a shot now. Man, I love this drill. So listen, most important thing that you can learn from today's drill is know that it's okay to start small. Think about what we taught you here today. We taught you that lag doesn't need to be done in these big, robust movements. You want to think about small inputs. You want to make sure that you're moving your body properly in space in the proper sequence, and you want to make sure that you allow the down cuck to start happening because you've allowed your wrist to maintain some suppleness, because you've allowed yourself to maintain some width. You do those 2 things and you start changing the direction of the golf swing properly, then you're going to feel what it's like to be effortless, and you're going to feel what it's like to be able to produce real speed and a whole lot of compression. Good luck. We'll see you guys in the next video.